We are live here from the Reef Family Studios. We have Fuzzrab to my left. We've got AbelMagwitch to my right. The reason I'm holding my finger in my ear currently is because I don't have a headset. Because, it's because I'm at the headquarters and I'm the big cheese in this interview is what I was told. The big stinky cheese. But either way, Fuzzrab, how you doing?
I am doing fabulous, thank you very much.
AbelMagwitch, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you, Teal.
Well, that's way too much excitement from the Mad Dog. We're going to ask him to tune that down just a touch. I'm not going to be able to capture all of that excitement. I know we're going to be talking soccer hooligans and whatnot, but if you could just scale it down and calm down for a second, sir, we'll move forward. All right. Fellas, I'm a dumb American. Pause for effect. Nothing? Okay, they didn't take the... Oh, I saw the eyes from Abel. Which team... Please, this is to inform all of us Americans, very, very intelligent Americans, obviously. Which team... This is to inform us about what's going on with Celtic and Ranger first, and then we'll ask some other questions.
Celtic.
First of all, it's not Celtic, it's Celtic.
Now listen here. Now you listen here. I told you I was a dumb American. Is you guys' sound working?
Yeah.
Everybody's sound's working? You guys don't even know what Wheel Snipe Selly is, and you're correcting me. You guys don't even know. You guys are acting real fucking 10-ply over here. All right, let me ask that again. Do you guys cheer for the Celtic or the Rangers? And I'm gonna ask you, Fuzz first.
I cheer for Glasgow Rangers.
Glasgow Rangers. And AbelMagwitch, who do you cheer for?
The mighty Glasgow Celtic.
Okay, it better be the Celtic if you're correcting me, because if you were both rooting for the Ranger and you're making me say the other team's name right, I mean, that's great, but that's great. All right, so Fuzzrab, in America, we have a lot of rivalries and whatnot. I'm going to let you answer this question first. You tell me why this rivalry means so much to you first, and then I'll have AbelMagwitch answer the same question.
It doesn't mean that much to me as they're the rival team or rivals, derby rivals. It's mainly the idiots that make it about religion, and that's why it kind of started.
So you said the idiots. You're not saying they're idiots. You got to speak up, because I said...
There's some idiots, a very small minority on both sides, Glasgow Rangers and Celtic, that make the rivalry all about religions. Rangers are traditionally Protestant, and Celtic are traditionally Catholic, and that's sort of where the rivalry started. So
and, they take it.
They take it like to a stupid extreme.
Too far.
It's a very common, way too far. They'll stab each other.
AbelMagwitch, do you concur?
Yeah. So what you need to understand about Scotland is obviously this is like a history lesson. In Ireland, the British Army went over, and there was when they were going over creating all their colonies and stuff, they invaded Ireland, made Ireland import all the like meat products, like their beef and all that over to England, and then that meant that the Irish people just had to live off potatoes, and then when the big potato famine happened, it meant that a lot of people from Ireland had no option but to move to like America, Scotland, England, Australia, sort of thing. So then there was a lot of poor people in the East End of Glasgow, and a lot of them were Irish descent, and Celtic was a football club that was set up initially to feed the poor families of the East End of Glasgow, majority being Irish or Scottish Catholics, and it was all the gate receipts were set up for that. So that's why Celtic became the Catholic club. Rangers were always the provincial kind of Protestant club, because that's what the kind of the main faith in Glasgow was, probably still is. So yeah, that's why it became Protestant and Catholic club. It wasn't just
a soccer
to
versus
be different
soccer
from
team.
each other.
Yeah. I totally understand that. Question, and I'll ask Fuzz first, and then I'll go. Do you think that if religion it's probably an unfair question, but do you think that if religion wasn't involved in this rivalry, that it would be as extreme as a rivalry as it is?
I think it still would be today. It wouldn't have got as extreme if religion hadn't involved in the start. But I think today, if you manage to take the religion part out of it and sectarian songs, because both sides sing stupid songs about it at times, like very vulgar songs.
Yeah.
I imagine if you took the religion out of it for today, it'd still be an extreme rivalry. I don't think it would have got as extreme.
Yeah.
It would still be an extreme rivalry. I don't think it would have got as extreme if it hadn't started with a religion. But I think it would still be very extreme.
I think that's fair, and I think
they are an opposite end to the city, so it's,
yes,
there is a lot of other smaller clubs going around with Partick Thistle and that, but yeah, they're the two big main clubs in Scotland.
Yes,
the only kind of big club in Scotland.
So off of that, and Abel, I'm going to let you answer the same question as far as would it be extreme. I guess the way that I understand that is, if we took religion out of it right now, there would still be so much like history from religion and from kind of like the famine, the potato famine and everything, to where even if this is a very good football rivalry, it's in some ways probably included casual football fans because of the religion involved in it to be more, I guess, I would say maniacal, if that's probably the right word, but I won't lead too much. I guess what I'm trying to say is it feels to me like this would be a very good sports rivalry that wouldn't have reached the extremes that it did. Like a lot of things you could say without religious involvement. But Magwitch, I'll reframe it for you and say, do you think this rivalry is as big of a rivalry if you take the dueling religions out of it?
It's hard to say, to be honest. I'd say it'd probably be on a par with most of the rivalries like down in England between like the big teams down there. Mm-hmm. Like obviously you've got like Manchester United and Liverpool. Theirs is based on like who's most successful, so it'd probably be in par with that. But the fact that it's hard to tell, because this is not just a football thing. This is a kind of a West of Scotland thing, and like religion and anti-Catholicness and anti-Irish and people of Irish backgrounds hating like Britishness and like the monarchy and things like that. So it's hard to tell. It's all kind of encompassed, but it's not the sole thing of the rivalry. A big part of it is because both clubs are so successful and both clubs have had like won so many things. So it's to do with that, but I think the religion aspect makes it probably one of the most unique rivalries in the world, and it's probably why it's probably one of the most intense rivalries in the world, I'd say. Yeah. And not just in football, I think in any sport. And I think, like, I'd say in football, I'd say the only rivalries that maybe come close to it would be like Barcelona and Real Madrid. And then,
oh, you're talking soccer. Go ahead.
Yeah, and then possibly like Boca Juniors and River Plate. I'd say the other two that maybe come as close to it, just because of like pure hatred, pure rivalry.
Yeah. So essentially, the soccer rivalry has been there. The problem that kind of steeps around with the religion is more of a locale problem than anything. It's more people are arguing whether it's in a soccer team versus soccer team. You have a lot of Scotland versus Irish, or you have a lot of Catholic versus Protestant. Is that how I'm understanding it?
Yeah, there is aspects.
But I mean, so in America, we're very divided on things. But if I told you that if you walk down to a supermarket and it's likely that you're going to see somebody openly basically saying racist, hateful, get the fuck out of here, I think in America that does happen. What I've seen is there's also a lot more underhanded things, and I don't know if it's just from, I'm sure it's probably just Twitter, but my question for you is, it seems like some of the racism and the homophobia in Scotland, and I'll start with you this time, Abel, I'll let you go, and then we'll go right to Fuzz. It seems like there's a pride in it. It seems like a lot of people that are being that way are almost doing it as like a prideful hate, and I feel like that's, do you get any feeling from that?
Yeah, well, yeah. I think the problem in Scotland is, obviously in the US you're talking about like white privilege and
Honestly, I'm talking about all oppression. I'm talking about there's homophobia. There's the same racism in America, but it's almost. Go ahead.
Like I said, it's because of the two different kind of different beliefs. Like obviously, a lot of Rangers fans are Protestant and they love the monarchy and they love being British. A lot of Celtic fans are from like Irish Catholic descent and they want a united Ireland and they want like independent Scotland. That's kind of the beliefs of that. So obviously a lot of political stuff comes into play. But yeah, again, Teal, it's like education. It's like I was on your stream earlier today and I was talking about like there's a lot of issues with politics in the UK at the moment, and a lot of them are kind of the politicians are fueling a lot of these like idiots to have like these kind of backward views, and I feel like
it's easier to get them to vote for you. It feels like that's what it feels like is going on in the world.
I feel like in the UK there's a lot of things, and it's anyone basically that's not white and British or doesn't identify as white British, they're being discriminated against, they're being hated against, and it feels like instead of us being in like 2022, it feels like we're in 1922 at times with some of the attitudes of people. Like, that's my opinion, basically. But
Fuzz, I know I asked that question, but I kind of have a question I'd like to ask you pertaining to along the same premise. A lot of racism that I've seen and hate and stuff like that I've seen in my life, I'm only 36 years old, has been smoke screened with patriotism. Pertaining to and answering a lot of what Abel's just now talking about. Does that seem kind of like a worldview now? It kind of seems like being racist and or hateful is, I guess, more acceptable if you're doing it in the name of your country?
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely the same over here. It's definitely like I was saying to Abel earlier on, we have like little corner shops, and a lot of them are run by like people of Asian descent, like Pakistanis, Indians and that, and they call them like people openly say, oh, it's the Paki shop, rather than say it's the corner shop, you know?
Yeah.
That kind of stupidity. But yeah, then a lot of them are like, you know, a lot of them are about, they're taking our jobs away. And these are people that have sat on the dogs, so, you know, the government benefit system.
Yeah.
These people have sat on the government benefit system like for their whole life. They'll get out of school, straight on the benefits. And they're complaining about all these people who are actually doing working hard, working long hours. And doing the good thing and actually helping out the community a lot of the time. A lot of these corner stores that like people call Pakis, or I hate that.
Yeah.
Taxi drivers are actually the worst for it.
Yeah.
If you get in a taxi being white, and I say I would take up to the corner shop where I live.
Yeah.
They'll say, oh, the Paki shop. But no, the corner shop.
Yeah. Call it the corner shop.
Then they start ranting about how they're taking away their jobs. And I say that a lot of these are people that haven't worked.
Yeah.
But there's sensible people that I know, like really nice people and that. But just when it comes to this kind of issue, they just like Abel said, it's like they're back in the early 1900s or even 1800s. They'll just get this blinker on about how these people are coming over and shouldn't come over. And a lot of them actually say, oh, you know, they're coming over on boats and France and that. We should just send them back. And it's like, yeah, they're coming over France, they're coming over to try and go over here because their country's a shithole and they're getting beaten up, raped, shot, knifed.
And they're seeking asylum. Yeah.
You go and spend a week there and see how you want to go.
Yeah.
It's just, that annoys me a lot.
Yeah, and I agree with that, and a lot of the stuff that you see in America, because in my opinion, I think that Western civilization, Christianity, is a lot more like online with a terroristic thing than anything. I think that Western civilization, Christianity says a lot of, we don't want our foreigners, we don't want people here that aren't from here. Not understanding that literally some of these churches that are still up that aren't paying taxes were built on the backs of slaves, were built on the backs of foreigners, where, you know, our whole entire train and rail system was built by Chinese men that were from China that came to America. You know what I mean? But instead of just railing on that, I think that AbelMagwitch hit it on the head with something, and I think education, I know this conversation got a little away from just soccer or from football, but how can we educate people about things that we don't talk about? It's kind of a fucked up question, and it's a rhetorical question, but Do you guys get what I'm saying by that? I mean, I know you do. Because I'm starting to feel like in America, if I go to a football game and I'm just there to like eat nachos and shut the fuck up and not have an opinion and drink beer, I have more of a community of friends around me. And I don't want to speak for how it is in Scotland or anywhere else, but it's starting to feel like if you're stupid, loud, and root for whoever the fuck they tell you to, then you're going to fit in everywhere. And I feel like it's starting to become a problem. We're also here to educate people on Celtic versus Rangers and everything that's going on there. So in a positive note, what is your most positive memory? I'll go Fuzzrab first, of a Rangers versus Celtic game.
You can't really pick one out. There's just too many.
There's too many? There's not like one time that they beat them 7-1 that people are pretending it didn't happen or anything like that? There's no...
It's happened from both sides. We've both been spanked by each other. I think we beat them 5-2 once, I think, a while ago, back in the 90s when we were pretty strong and a really good team.
What do you think of Magwitch tweeting out today the 7-1 loss on Twitter that he put out? And go ahead, Magwitch, explain yourself.
That was a dig at the Scottish press because they said that Rangers, that was the first time Rangers ever lost 7-1 to Liverpool the other night in the Champions League.
Yeah.
In fact, it wasn't. It happened in 1957 in a cup final, and Celtic beat them 7-1 then. So just the Scottish press liking to rewrite history again.
Yeah.
No, as I said, that doesn't bother me. I mean, as I said, I'm more of a casual supporter for Rangers. I'm not, dying the will.
Yeah. I love it though. I love that because that's gamesmanship.
Yeah, I've got friends that are Celtic friends, and I'm sure Abel's got friends who are Rangers friends. We like to dig at each other, friendly kind of digging stuff like that. Yeah. And I was waiting for Abel to bring up to 7-1 to be fair.
I mean, Celtic's lost 7-1 in the Champions League before as well, so it's the nature of coming up against these teams that have got
one thing I admire
and billions.
Yeah, Scottish football's good.
One thing I admire about you guys is you recognize something that a lot of American sports fans don't. You have a lot of dudes that have rooted for really shitty teams, and then that team has one good year, and they just forget everything, and they're the loudest mouthpiece in the whole room. Like if the Lakers didn't win shit for 10 years and then they won it, everybody just forgets about how shitty they were and starts bragging about Lakers. So I think it's pretty hilarious that, like I said, with Scotland, at least you guys, Scotland and Ireland, at least you guys in this rivalry have like the ability to just kind of laugh it off and realize it's gamesmanship, even though we're talking about how extreme it can get. So that's something that America has sports like a cult, man. It's like a fucking cult in America, and I promise you that. So
now most people, sorry to interrupt. Most of us do. Most of the Rangers and Celtic fans will just kind of rub it off the bad years and that, but there is a few of them that rub it in, like Rangers and the administration and Dirty League 3 and that for breaking the tax rules of, it's a long story, just a crappy thing. And, a lot of Celtic fans, not a lot of Celtic fans, but, some Celtic fans just always bring that up in every conversation kind of thing. And then the Rangers fans are the same when Celtic almost went bust. The Rangers fans will then bring that up. And it's just a silly argument. It's it's in the past. It happened.
If you've been on a losing team, you know that you should just enjoy when you're winning and not brag about it too much. I'm gonna ask a tough question now. I'm gonna ask Abel. He warned me that I might get canceled, but I'm not scared. I don't give a shit. I think they tried to already. AbelMagwitch, sir, what is the main purpose of the royal family? Oh, I'm ducking. I'm out.
Right. So I'm not against anyone that's for them, that supports them, right? But I'm just of the belief that I don't see what the point of a monarchy is in 2022. You talk about, like, one of your things, Teal, is you're always talking about white privilege. Now, in my head, in my point of view, is there's nothing more white privilege than the English royal family. I mean, people go, oh, they work hard and they do this and they do that. Like, do they really? I mean, they're just famous public speakers, basically. They just go and like open things, and I don't know. I don't see the point of them, because we've got obviously got the Parliament in England, we've got a Parliament in Scotland and all that, and basically they're the ones that decide the mess that we're in, and the Conservative Party in England at the moment, they're all they're about is making the white privilege richer, and that's all they're doing. We've got a massive cost of living crisis here in the UK at the moment, and even people who you would say, oh, they've got a decent job or like dual income houses, like parents literally having to make a decision: do we put the heating and the electricity on today, or do we eat today? Yeah. It's really that bad, and that's why I'm saying it's like we're going back in time to the early 1900s or 1800s or whatever. And we've got like politicians that are just so up their own backsides, and all they're caring about is making themselves richer. And my biggest gripe was how much money was spent on that funeral for the Queen. I get she was there for but the thing is, we've got a rising number of people needing to use food banks, which in 2022 is just appalling. Do you know what I mean? So I'm just thinking there's so many things that are being ignored by the government, and all these people are like saying, "Oh, the royal family are great. They do this, do that." I'm sorry, but they don't enrich my life in any way, shape, or form. So I just don't see the point in them. So I
respect that, and even they don't enrich my life part. I even think it's even more fair, because some people are like, oh, they're not there to enrich your life, but they actually can cause in some areas, in some governments. I won't just talk about royal family. I'll let you have your opinion on that. But they can cause certain ceilings for people of certain, descent, of certain financial ability. And if they're there to cause a ceiling that you can't really reach through, then that's called oppression. That's really the definition of oppression. And pertaining to the white privilege thing, in my opinion, I think that it's kind of weird to me that in America, we still have people that talk shit openly about Martin Luther King Jr. and watch what they say about, the Queen, and watch what they say about white Jesus, or, whatever. And so it's kind of a white privilege thing. And I know that the royal family, I don't think that necessarily each individual person is a bad person. I think that what they did, and the things that they pillaged, and the places that they raped, and the things that they took, those people were real people, is what I think. But I also want to give Fuzz a completely fair chance to say, what's the main purpose of the royal family? And I promise you, it's not an antagonistic question. I know I'm capable of being sarcastic at times, but I wouldn't do that here. And I very much respect you guys having this conversation with me. So, Fuzz, in your opinion?
I'm fine with it. I don't really care about the royal family. I'm with Abel. I think they're a bit pointless. The only thing they seem to do is, people say they seem to do, is bring in, people that travel there, I can't think of the word.
Tourism.
Tourism, that's it.
A lot of tourism, right? And it's weird.
Apparently that's the main, but I don't think it brings in that much money.
I don't buy that.
Yeah, I don't think it brings it. Other than that, I don't see the point. I don't think they should be funded in any way by the taxpayer.
It feels like a tradition we can't get out of, right? I mean, we have that in America too.
The taxpayer funds all their upgrades and shit like that, and that shouldn't happen, because they've got tons of money as it is. And like Abel says, they're just there to cut a ribbon, basically. Yeah. And that's it. Other than that, they don't really have a point for me. I don't really care about them. I don't support them or hate them.
Yeah, I understand.
I don't see the point. They should be sort of put to the side and just left away, own the ribbons and just leave it alone. But there's just too many people that support them for some reason. I'm not sure why. It's just I'm not sure why
it's weird, right? Go ahead, Abel.
Sorry. No, I was just going to say, I view them as our version of the Kardashians. Do you know what I mean? They're just famous for being famous.
I think it's it's a fair point. And I didn't mean to cut you off, Fuzz, but I don't understand why we are literally like Fuzz and you were talking about in America and obviously in the UK, we're going to let people go hungry to keep on heirs, to make people like get to have their gold and their nice cars and everything like that. I don't understand that. Like we need to feed people. We need to stop like, so the way that has to happen, and like I said, it's weird. It's really weird when I say something about Donald Trump and you have people that have, one, never met him in any way, shape, or form, two, wouldn't be able to say that they believe anything he says is good, and they're like, hey, I know, but let's not talk because he kind of looks like our grandpa. You feel like some people are like, don't talk about the royal family because they look like they might be those same people. Like, I feel like the queen was my grandmother, which is super fucking weird in my opinion. But anybody like seeing grown men crying about a woman passing away at 96 and having a $9 million funeral, I don't think we're gonna get change if that shit is normalized. Fuzz, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I agree. It's just bizarre. Like all these I mean, I've got something like fucking 12 palaces or some shit like that. Sell them all off. It's like a room in Buckingham Palace. Well, the fucking all in there or whatever. Yeah. And then sell off all the stuff that they've got and raise a lot of money that can go straight into the food banks. Because like Abel says, there's people who are, like my mum and dad both work good jobs. Yeah. And they've recently installed a wood fire. Yeah. Because it's going to be cheaper for them than the gas. They sell all the Frasers and say, oh, fuck them in one palace. Yeah. Leave them at one side and forget about them. But as I'm saying, the Queen herself, she was a lovely person by all accounts, I always say. Yeah. By all accounts, she's a lovely person, but that doesn't mean she should be getting millions and millions and millions from taxpayers to fix up a couple of windows and shit like that. Yeah. In the same way, apparently Charles is going to be more economically savvy, but he's still going to be getting a lot of money from the taxpayer. Yeah. Which he shouldn't be getting. He should be going towards food banks and people and the cost of living. And as Abel said, the politicians over here are completely, they're usually fucked up, but they're really, really fucked up. Yeah, it's really scary. Go ahead, Abel, sorry.
Oh, I'm just saying, the UK is becoming very right wing again, and it's quite scary how right wing it's becoming. And obviously, all they care about is themselves and making them and their friends richer. Yeah. And to hell with the rest of us.
Yeah, and honestly, the thing that a lot of people don't talk about, and I'll just talk about it for a second because I think it's extremely pertinent with the royal family, is there's a conversation in America that a lot of people that aren't even necessarily bigots, not even just some white people, don't want to have a conversation about a term called generational wealth. And if you look at the royal family, basically everybody in that country is paying for any of the babies or any of the kids or anything that they basically have. And when you talk about generational wealth, there's a lot of people that are like, well, they earned it. And it's like, well, if your family got rich in the times of slavery for selling slaves and getting $1 million at money that time, then I don't know that they really earned their generational wealth. And if you look at some of the money that the royal family has earned, I don't know that they've earned their wealth. I think they started gaining their wealth when it was a time where you kind of raped, pillaged, and killed who you wanted and took what you want. And now in 2022, it's really, really weird where my thing is people are like, the Queen was a nice person. And if I'm being completely honest, why wouldn't she have been? Like, where would she have been upset about anything? And I'm saying like she had everything her way. She had it done the right way. You weren't even allowed to touch the Queen. You realize that when Michelle Obama touched the Queen, like everybody in the world like freaked out because apparently you're not supposed to go up and like touch the Queen. And I thought it was extremely awesome of the Queen, who basically reached back out and she grabbed Michelle Obama and she and was like, don't worry about that. And basically, I think the Queen, it's very possible that she's a really good person, but that's why I think a lot of this racism and stuff is so hard to change their traditions, because there's really decent people that are just caught up in the tradition of it. Like, how do we, where you guys are from, it's not like you can go to a football game and start just yelling at dudes that are homophobic to stop it. That's obviously, it's not getting it a lot of us places. What do you think we have to do? Is it a politician thing? Is it, because every time we start doing that and we talk about passing bills, those bills have to be given a shit about, right?
Yeah, like, the issue as well is, like, because of our government and things like that, and the way that they're, like, the whole Brexit thing for the UK to leave the European Union, that was basically fueled on lies and tapping into people's kind of racist and like xenophobic views.
Yes, it was.
they also had the biggest lie was they said that if they left the European Union, and they plastered this on the side of like double-decker buses, was they said all the money they were going to reinvest into the National Health Service. They backtracked on that so fast as soon as Brexit was saying, oh no, we were just saying that we could have put the money into the NHS, what we were saving from that. So yeah, and there's another thing at the moment as well, that we've got a lot of union strikes. So obviously our rail services on strikes, postal services are going on strike, and the biggest thing is, for the first time ever, nurses are talking about going on strike, and see the backlash for that. It is crazy. Like, there's so many like miscontrived like views upon this. And yes, I used to work as a nurse, right? I left the profession this year. Yeah. And I can tell you for a fact that nurses are not well paid. So see all these, and they're
people not well treated either.
No, and there's a lot of people hating on it, going, "Oh, they get paid enough." Like, no, they don't. Like, yes. There's like nurses that are literally the ones that are going to food banks, like single parent nurses trying to feed their kids are having to go to food banks, and they're working like 44 hours a week, whatever, 12-hour shifts, burnt out, having to try and do extra shifts to make ends meet, and they're struggling. And there's like these people believing the absolute like bullshit from the Tories, and oh no, they're well paid anyway, why would they go on strike? That's compromising patient care. I'm telling you for a fact, the NHS is in that much of a mess that patient care is compromised already. Yes. So this myth that people going on strike is going to make it worse. No, what they're going to strike is they want paid fairly, because the cost of living is so like astronomically bad right now. Yeah. And also they want their conditions that they're working in improved upon. But our government and the press in the UK have spun it that these people are greedy, that they're bad, that they're basically disrespecting like the normal working man, when it's the complete opposite.
You know what they would have called them in the Jim Crow days? They would have called them uppity. That's what they would have called them in America. They said these guys are uppity because basically they want them to do what they've always done and shut the fuck up. But you shouldn't work that long and still have to fuck. Go ahead, sorry.
But the thing is, to go back to your question, like how do we educate? I don't know, Teal. The thing is, I don't know. Because I feel like there is so many people now that like believe all the lies they're told by like the politicians and by the press and everyone kind of connected to that they believe in it, and they make comments without actually doing any like research. I mean, on any subject that I'm not sure on, I always try and do a bit of research on, so I've at least try and make an informed opinion on things. But my thing is just pick up a book. Do you know what I mean? Like read a history book, do some research before you start making like stupid comments. But the thing is, as I was saying on your thing as well, there's so many people in this like in the UK that are like, oh, freedom of speech. But the thing is, what they really mean is they want to be racist, they want to be homophobic, they want to like
with no consequences.
Yeah, they want that. But as soon as you call them out on their bullshit, or you say something they don't agree with, they're like, "Oh, you can't say that."
Backlash. Yeah, it's backlash. It's been that way. It's really ignorant, and I totally agree with that. I've seen it here. The healthcare workers here, when COVID started, they didn't even have enough masks to be able to change their masks and their uniforms. So they were actually going and sleeping. I heard stories about them sleeping in their garages. So they'd work like their 50-hour shifts, like, you know, or all the whole week or whatever. They'd work, and then they'd go home, and the family would be in the household, and they would just sleep in the garage, so they didn't have to bring anything in. They'd wash their fucking masks and like some of their scrubs in buckets out in the garage. So I just don't understand. And Fuzz, my question for you is, when we look at that and we look at certain medical entities that are being treated like shit, and in America you see professional athletes that are being paid millions and millions of dollars, and then in the UK you see the Royals having millions and millions of dollars. How can we make sense out of that as human beings for much longer? If I know it's kind of a loaded question, but how can we make sense?
That's I say to touch on Abel's point about, you know, the nursing, but I've got a condition called, Abel probably knows what it is, called hemochromatosis. It means I've got far too much iron in my blood. So you're supposed to have a certain amount of iron I've got 10 times the amount. See, I've been in hospital a few times this year because COVID. I've not got supposed to get a pint of blood taken out until it goes down to a certain level.
Yeah.
Because of COVID, I've not had that. See, I've been in hospital a lot, and I've been with the nurses, and there's been like the wards I've been in, like there's like 2 nurses doing a whole ward.
Yeah.
And they say 12-hour shifts, and it's not just the 12-hour shifts actually, and I think Abel would be, they do the handovers. So they do the 12 hours, and then they've got another like 45 minutes of handing over to the next shift and stuff like that. And they don't seem to get breaks.
Yeah.
Or they're not able to take breaks. They're overworked as fuck.
Well, you can't. Yeah.
They definitely do not get paid enough. I agree with
And,
that completely 100%.
And seeing the last 10 years, the other thing I noticed was like the amount of abuse directed towards like nurses and healthcare professionals now,
It's accepted.
and the general public and patients think it's accepted, and it has gotten worse in the last 10 years. And then they had this whole thing over here during COVID at the start, like, oh, clap for the nurses and all that. So people would go outside, and at 8 o'clock on a Thursday, I think it was, everyone went out and applauded for the nurses, right? And then in Scotland they did this thing, and it was Nicola Sturgeon decided that all the nurses would get like an extra £500 at like Christmas time, just as like a thank you, right? But it wasn't like a separate thing. It went in with people's wages, so by the time you were taxed, you were only maybe getting like £150 of that, right?
That's stupid. Yeah.
And people were bitter about that. People were bitter about like the fact that like people were working through COVID. I ended up with COVID 3 times. I've had long COVID, and that's one of the reasons why I left, sort of thing. But people were bitter about that, and they were saying, "Oh, I don't get a bonus and all this stuff." And it's like,
you're not fucking working with people
safe
that
in
you
your
might
home.
die from. You're not. You like. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. There's a lot of dudes around here that were like I'm not joking. There were dudes around here that they're like, COVID made me. I had to fire all my employees from my business. And there's an actual video on Twitter of one of the dudes you could watch. He's like, I had to shut down my business and fire my employees. And the guy's like, oh man, I'm sorry to hear about that. Like, what were you? And he's like, well, I was a mechanic. And they're like, oh, okay. Like, how many people did you employ? He's like, I'm self-employed, worked for myself. And the dude's sitting there and he's fucking pissed off. He's like, I had to shut down my business because of COVID. And he's like, he's letting them interview him. And he's saying the dumbest shit in the world. He's like, I had to lay off my employees. And he's being dead serious. And they're like, oh, how many people do you have to lay off? Well, I work for myself. So you fired yourself because COVID. And you're on here being like, I don't think everybody else should get all these goddamn loans and all this help. I had to shut down my business. Why are we giving out money to all these other people? I was like, dude, you're fucking dumb. I hate to be so blunt, but there's so many conversations with people lately, and I've tried to be like, okay, well, let's see this. I think I'm 36. I'm 36. I know I am. I'm old enough now when somebody says something that fucking stupid, that consists of be like, hey, bud, here's the thing. You're fucking stupid. And I'm sorry, but I don't want to start the conversation with that with some people, but I feel like that might help. I think it might help. As much as people say that's not the answer, I don't know. I'm starting to think that when you're sitting there and someone's dicking you around, you guys might have been in these conversations where you're like, hey, dude, that's homophobic. And they're like, well, so-and-so did it, or so-and-so did this. That's not homophobic. I think the longer we spend energy being like, dude, you know it is, instead of just being like, shut the fuck up, you're an asshole, and you're a bigot. I'll see you later. Like, I don't know, because I'm about peace, and I think you guys know that. But Jesus, the bullshit is just so rife with racist right now. You know?
Yeah, I mean? over here in Scotland. Sorry to interrupt. Over here in Scotland, I don't know if I'm able to agree with me or not, but homophobia is an extremely big thing over here still. It's still extremely bad over here. It's ridiculous. I don't understand it myself personally. I've got no issues with race, gender, whatever. You know, people call themselves. There's all kind of terms for it now. I can't remember non-binary stuff. I don't understand most of it, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I've got no issues with people calling themselves what they want, doing what they want. I'm not going to harm anyone, obviously. But I don't understand it. Like, my mum and dad brought me up to respect everyone, no matter what. That was it. You respect everyone. You start off when you meet someone, you start off thinking, right, you're a good person until they prove you wrong. And then you cut them out of your life.
Yep.
And that's the same. But homophobia, and I'll always stand up, because I've had friends that have been, gay or whatever the proper term is these days. And I've had plenty of friends that, and I've seen the abuse they get, and just for nothing, just for being gay.
Well,
and I've been like, calm yourself down. It's just,
yes.
And it's usually arseholes who pubs that are drunk, but it's not only that. There's a lot of
there's a huge misconception.
There's a lot of sober, supposedly sensible people
that are rooting it on.
Who make these comments just, for no apparent reason. And I just because of the way I've been brought up, I just cannot understand it. Especially in this day and age, when you think, you think we're progressing, but like Abel said, it seems like we're going backwards. It doesn't seem like we're going forwards at any point.
Yeah.
It just seems like we're continually going backwards. It seems like we're back in the 80s.
When it comes to homophobia, I think when it comes to homophobia, and I don't know about necessarily in the UK or Scotland, but I know that you guys have soccer hooligans. I know that we have stuff like that. It feels like a lot of the homophobia is like a male herd mentality that's almost become synonymous with like the boys playing sports. And the really, really dangerous thing that I don't think that's talked about enough, in my opinion, is everybody will say that a lot of those dudes learned that homophobia from their father, from their uncle, from everything. I think we need to have an uncomfortable conversation and talk about how many middle-aged white women, and maybe even women also, say a lot of extremely homophobic stuff. And not just to men. There's a lot of women that say, like want to make sure their daughter is a girl. That you know what I mean? That say really derogatory things. Yeah. And so it's really weird because it's along the same guidelines of why people just like idolize the royal family. Everybody's always going to try to give their parent a little bit of a better chance, in my opinion. And it's a really hard thing in this world right now, where we have to understand that we weren't raised around racists. Even if our parents were really good, I think most of us were raised by racists, even if it was by happenstance, even if it was because they're teaching us that Christopher Columbus is who they were taught that it was. So it's a really, really a scary thing for me, because I think it's easy for us to say homophobia is really just a bunch of drunk guys at a baseball game or a football game yelling slurs. But realistically, when those guys go home, a lot of them are bragging about that shit to their wives, moms, to other people. I think, and I know that gay people are it's a lot like Asian Americans. They're openly, by every generation, you'll have kids from 5 years old getting an attaboy from their dad for saying somebody looks fruity, right? And you'll have somebody that's 90 doing the same thing. And when you talk about soccer hooligans and we talk about the homophobia and you talk about how the abuse happens, I live in Northern California, and dudes that are the same ages as my uncles that used to be friends with my uncles when we were kids were saying they were going to get drunk and go down to San Francisco and do some gay bashing. And it's the most disgusting thing in the world. But the reason I'm saying that is because if people think that there's this weird thing where they're like, those guys are drunk and they're just giving that guy some shit, right? Just homophobia. What happens when that dude turns and goes, hey, go fuck yourself? And rightfully so. Does he get the shit beat out of him? Of course he does. And then everybody wants to argue about, like, they didn't beat him up because he was gay. They beat him up because he said, go fuck yourself. Yeah, after about an hour of being harassed for being gay. So I don't know. It's really, really fucking weird to me, because I know we talk about racism all the time, but I think that homophobia is so blatantly accepted everywhere that it's starting to like just seep into everything.
Yeah, one of the good things that's starting to happen over here is, and I wasn't saying it's just sporting people drunk that are homophobic. I was being in it. That's you see it mainly, but you see it at other places outside of sports and that. But one of the things that's happening at the moment in sports, or in soccer at least, is that people are actually, some gay football players are actually coming out as gay while they're still playing.
Yeah.
Not from any big clubs yet, and a few referees. It's starting to happen, at least, that people are feeling comfortable. They actually come out, like sports people are actually feeling comfortable to come out as gay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only sort of recently started, so I'm interested to see what the reaction from the fans is, because I'm pretty sure they're going to get abuse for it. Yeah. Which is wrong, obviously, but at least they've had the strength to come out, and hopefully that helps other people come out. And hopefully, as it progresses, then hopefully, the fans. A lot of the fans will support it, but there's definitely going to be some idiots that are going to conflicts of ours. Yeah,
Magwitch, you want to jump in?
Yeah, the thing that annoys me is, right, folk go, footballers, like, this was even just a few years back, footballers will never come out as being gay because it wouldn't be accepted. Oh, football fans, football. No, this is a wider society thing. This is not just a football thing, right? Because football fans, even like with Celtic and Rangers fans, right? So you get all these Celtic fans all across the world because like Celtic and Rangers are massive worldwide, right?
Yeah.
It's for people from different backgrounds, different beliefs, different faiths support the clubs, right?
Yeah.
The thing is, you're going to have people from each club that are going to be homophobic or racist or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what my thing is, that's not just because they're football fans. That's because it's a wider society thing. That's because of what they're brought up on. But my thing is, obviously you can see on my T-shirt, GW. Obviously it was a parody of NXT 2.0 with the bright colours and AEW.
Yeah.
But the reason I went for it was because I wanted to show that my stream was open to all. I don't discriminate. I welcome everyone in.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Absolutely.
So that's why I went for that. The other thing was, I think it was June or July there, my club Celtic released a pride scarf. So it was like a black and white scarf, and then on the two ends when you hold it up, there's like the rainbow flags on each side. So I bought one of them, right?
Yeah.
And see the reaction from some folk, like they're like, "Why are you wearing that?" Like, and all this sort of stuff, and it's like because
I'm supporting it. And they
go
to
say,
"What? Are you gay?"
and
the
I'm
next
showing
question they ask you, right?
Yeah, and folk are like, "Are you gay?" Like, no, but that's not the point. Is I'm being an ally to these people.
Yeah.
I'm standing up for these people, and it's people like me that's got to make it acceptable so that more people find it acceptable, and then these people feel comfortable, right?
Yep.
But the thing is, I'd like to hope that if a Celtic player was to come out as gay, like tomorrow, that the majority of the fan base would be accepting of it, and it wouldn't even bother folk, and they would like applaud them for being brave and coming out, because it's one of the most hostile environments is football, especially Scottish football, for like abuse. And don't get me wrong, that player would be targeted by opposition fans because they would use it as a thing to like try and rile the player up, or try and
try to incite something. Yeah.
Which is wrong, but I'm not going to sugarcoat things. I mean, there was a video of I think it was Hibs done United the other week, and there was definitely somebody shouting a racial slur, and that's been investigated.
Yeah.
We've had bananas thrown at black footballers at the football. One of my thing is I crack up like massive at this because people think it's funny, but Celtic have got like 4 Japanese players at present. And the thing that riles me up is when the folk go, "Oh, the 4 Japs," or like opposition fans will like obviously do things with their eyes which you shouldn't do, obviously pretend that they're Japanese, or they'll say, "Oh, he ate my dog," and all these like stupid racial slurs, and they don't think they're being racist. And then see when I pull them up on it, they're going, "Oh, you're just a snowflake." Like, no. My point is, what you're saying is out of order. Like, you need to stop that. That is not acceptable.
And that snowflake shit is a joke, bro. I've never seen somebody that was a real tough guy. I've never seen anybody in my life that actually had some sort of fortitude in them call somebody else a snowflake for standing up for other people. I agree with you. I agree, and I don't think that a lot of dudes realize that. I think it's a herd mentality. I think it's a lot of dudes that are, and I don't mean to like rain on the positivity of what you're saying, but I also think in some ways that the dude who comes out, if a dude comes out as gay for a certain football team, and there's homophobes that root for that team, why is it now that they're going to be like, well, hey, since he came out, there's some people that are like, I support him now because he's our gay soccer player. He's like, that's the same tribal like mindset that's going on in NFL football in America. They're basically like, fuck this guy for everything he stands for. This guy beats women. This guy does this. But if he's on our team, we better fucking, to the point of even racism. Like, it's really, really weird, because I think that people aren't looking at the fact that if you are a homosexual and you're on the team and you come out, and dudes that were fucking throwing beers and acting a fool are all of a sudden like, hey, you're cool with us now. You almost look at the guy like, fuck you. I'm cool even if you don't fucking like me. You know what I mean? And we need more people like you and like Fuzz and I believe like me to kind of be like, no, dude, you're not here to like allow them to be here, you're here to celebrate them. You're not here just to let them in the fucking door. You need to make a fucking table, clear a table for them to fucking be. You need to make it to where if there's a tradition or this month is a month that they practice something religious, you need to fucking accommodate them for that. And you need to stop being a fucking asshole, because I don't know when we did this, but we got a lot of little boys that have dads that are little boys that are fucking telling them to be like neener with racism and shit. And I just don't get it, man. It's really weird. It feels like there's a huge level of immaturity, that you're allowed to be immature at a sports game if it's based around racism. Like, is that...
Yeah, the thing is, like Abel was saying, you know, if a Celtic player come out as gay, you know, you'd hope the majority would support it.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, like, I know for a fact that the Rangers fans would target that player.
Yeah.
Not all of them, not the majority, let's say. It's on both sides. It's a small minority, but it's a vocal minority.
And as important, though.
And Abel will say, not enough of people like being able to stand up for him.
Yeah.
A lot of people just let it go, just stay quiet.
Yeah.
For this minority. But I know that for a fact, the Rangers fans, there is a minority of Rangers fans who would target, and I know for a fact.
And do you think it's true or false?
I know for a fact that the Japanese thing, definitely Rangers fans definitely do that.
And
I don't go to many of the games, but I've been to a couple. I go to a couple now and then when I can, and I know I've seen it, and I've said, you know, just you can't say that, and if they can't say, I'll just go to the security, who are usually useless anyway, because they're too scared to go and say anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll bring them up. Usually if I watch the football, I'll watch it in a wee pub where I live. And it's a nice wee pub, thankfully.
Yeah.
And there's none of that. If somebody does come in and say that, generally most of the pub will tell them to shut up or it will be shut down, thankfully. Yeah. So it's a good wee, and that's why I go to that pub. It's generally the only pub I go to. And I only go like to watch the football and buy and doing stuff. But yeah, I know for a fact that unfortunately there is a section of Rangers fans that would definitely target that player. And I'm sure, you know, it'd be the same in the opposite way. If a Rangers player came out as gay, there's a section of the Celtic fans that would do the same. And it's just like I say, it just baffles me. I just can't understand any
So
of
do you think it's true? Here's what I'll ask. Do you think, and this probably kind of goes against a lot of stuff but I'm asking this for a psychology reason, for just my understanding. Do you think it's possible that there's people that go to these games, and I'm not making excuses, if you do or you act homophobic or racist, you are homophobic and racist. That's it. Do you think there's some people that are actually even less of that in a weird way now until they get into their group at a football game or a sports game? I'll leave that as an open question. Do you think there's dudes that basically wait until they're in a group of 17 other dudes and they think they're doing it in the name of blank sport that they're rooting for? I'm not excusing it in any way. I'm saying I think it's become a psychological problem where even little kids like in Little League are talking shit about like another kid that's like a heavyset kid, and parents aren't coming over and be like, why are 7 of you as a group talking about one person?
Yeah,
does that make any sense?
Yeah. I don't think it's just I think being in a group maybe makes them a bit louder, but I think when they're outside the stadium and outside the group, they're still homophobic and racist and still would make those comments.
Yeah.
I think they feel brave. I think they feel brave when they're in a group and in a stadium. I think
it's faux camaraderie, right?
Yeah,
I think a lot of these faux camaraderie.
I think a lot of these people wouldn't dare say it if they were on their own in the street to someone. Put it that way.
Yeah.
I think they might think it, but I don't think they would say it if they were just in the street saying it to someone, if it was one-on-one or whatever. But because they're surrounded by like other supporters that are saying the same things in the stadium, they feel brave and they think they can get away with it, freedom of speech and all that nonsense. But yeah, a lot of these people, I don't think they would dare say it to like somebody's face if it was one-on-one. Because my experience, a lot of these people are just cowards anyway.
Yeah,
I guess. Another way I would phrase it too, because you answered my question, but if you're a person and you're like at your house and you don't drink that much and you're a relatively normal, calm person, and you go to a sporting event and you get really shit-faced drunk and you're in a group of people, why does it feel, whether fair or foul, like everybody, whether they're a good person or a bad person, whether it's racist or non-racist, kind of gets into that herd mentality? Like basically the most, like, the kindest thing is like, oh, everybody in my section bought popcorn, so I'm going to buy popcorn. You know, we're kind of at the sporting event. All the way to everybody in my section is, like, chanting a racist thing at somebody, so I'm going to take part of it and just kind of say it's just because I'm here. Do you see any of that philosophically?
Yeah.
Sports.
I think it's because psychologically humans want to fit in. They don't want to be different, and that's why it's so hard for people to come out as gay and stuff like that, because they want to fit in. Basically, I think that's the case with people when they're in a group. So,
and I hate to cut you off, but I'm going to on this one just because if the main way for people to fit into sports these days, and I genuinely feel this is true, if the main way for people to fit into major sports at the entry level with everybody else is through like agreed homophobia at times, agreed racism, but only for certain teams because this is our team, then what does that mean that most major sports in the world are encouraging right now? Whether on purpose or not.
I don't think it's like if I go to football, I don't like sing along with things like that and stuff like that. I just watch the football, cheer and stuff like that.
And you're awesome for that. What I'm saying is you're the minority when you go to a sporting event because you're willing to actually speak out against the hatred that's going on directly in front of you. Now, why wouldn't that... I don't want to lead anybody, but there's a lot of people that have a tough time when I say that hockey is racist, when I say that most sports... Because like Magwitch said, it's not a soccer thing, it's not a hockey thing, it's really a society thing. And it's this really weird thing where people go, we'll deal with the society problem later. Tonight, it's Thursday night football in America. You know what I mean? When it's the same exact fucking thing. Like, the soccer stadiums that fill up, they take money for the tickets. It affects the local government. If they wanted to basically be like, nobody's allowed to come in here until they've taken a 1-week course on educating themselves on anti-racism, whether in America or in the UK. That could totally happen. You get what I'm saying? So
I think as well...
Go ahead.
I think as well, Teal, there's a problem in Scotland as well where, and Fuzz will know about this, there's football fans are treated like second-class citizens by the media and by the politicians.
Yeah.
There was I can't even remember the name of it, but there was a football antisocial behaviour act thing that was passed, and basically it gave like the police free rein to arrest people for like the most insane things.
For being soccer fans?
Yeah, so it could have been somebody just like shouting and swearing at somebody, going like whatever, just shouting abuse, right? They might have just been like fired up at the moment, and it might not even be anything racist, anything homophobic or anything.
Yeah.
But it could have just been swearing, like calling somebody like something derogatory or like just in the heat of the moment.
That's crazy.
But this thing allowed like police to basically like kettle fans in a dangerous way. There was been a lot of times where the police they just hoard fans and then they funnel them through the stadium in like ways that's not safe. It leads to like people getting trampled and crushed at times, and things like that. But also this bill, it was basically that football fans can't behave themselves because in the 1980s there was one day that there was a lot of fans that were drunk, Celtic and Rangers fans. There was a bit of a fight and things. But this happened like once. This was like once that this happened. Like there was anything on this scale where it was like that bad. But you're not allowed to drink at the football in Scotland. You can't buy a beer in the stadium, and it's been like that since the 80s. You can in England, but also you can buy a drink at the rugby in Scotland, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And rugby fans, they're a great bunch of guys and all that. I'm telling you now, not every rugby fan is an angel either.
No, it's this stereotype.
But it's this thing. Yeah, it's this thing that rugby's is a what was it they say? It's a thug sport
or something.
It's a thuggish sport played by gentlemen, and football's the opposite. Yeah. But it's nonsense, right? And it's this thing that any time there was an issue with like COVID, football was the first to get punished as well in Scotland. It was right, we're shutting the football down again because COVID's on the outbreak. But you can still go to concerts, you can still do this, still do that. But football's getting shut down. You're not getting your football because that's the big spreader of COVID.
So it's like every person that's a soccer fan gets treated like they're basically. It'd be like if you're a hockey fan in the middle of California, and I don't mean that to be like I'm saying to try to. It's basically like you're an idiot, like or a Neanderthal or a knuckle dragger is what they're treating like. The dudes that are in suit and ties, like the whole entire Federation of Soccer could come up with a great bill that would be amazing. And the first thing that politicians would be like, we really gonna listen to these guys? It's that kind of shit, right? Yeah, that's
it's basically like Abel says. It's like, I mean, me and Abel are sensible people and normal people and stuff like that. I'm not going to go out and beat someone up because they're wearing a Celtic shirt or anything like that. You know, I watch the football just for.
But they label you all the same.
Yeah, the label. If you wear a football shirt, that's you. People look down the nose at you. Oh, he's a football fan. He must be a thug. And it goes back to the 80s. They're all living in the 80s when it was mainly English fans actually that were. You know, they arranged the separate clubs to have fans arranged like places to meet. There was just for a fight.
There was
in Glasgow, but
there was one Celtic Rangers game in the 80s where there was like a couple of the players were actually arrested because of like the fight broke out onto the pitch and things.
Yeah.
And they were taken to court, and basically it was the way of like the politicians and the police and stuff to make an example. Yeah. Basically. But again, this was like what? Like 40 odd years ago, and they're acting like it's still the same now, and it's like, come on.
It was like 82 or 83.
It's fucking crazy.
And they're still get that mentality that all football fans are like that.
Yeah, the antisocial.
They're all out just to beat each other. They're all out to be pissed to beat each other up.
It reminds me of
very much in the table stage. You can't drink in the stadium. Lots of people drink a lot before getting into the stadium.
Yeah,
problem, but you know you can't stop that.
They have a NYPD stop and frisk. Do you guys know about that? Fuzz, real quick. Do you know about NYPD's stop and frisk that they did? Probably started about 10 years ago.
I vaguely remember it.
So it's like this. You told me that the antisocial bill was basically if you're a soccer player and you're acting a little too rowdy or you're walking in an area or they have an excuse, as I understand it, to fuck with you, the cops are going to come at least shake you down, maybe arrest you, right? Am I understanding it relatively correct?
Yeah, it's like people that were getting the
just getting loud or being whatever. Well, part of the reason why Eric Garner, one of the reasons why Eric Garner was choked to death by the NYPD is because they just passed a bill where it was stop and frisk. So if you were walking on New York, if you're walking in any public street in New York, cops had the right to stop and frisk you. The problem is 98% of the people that they were stopping and frisking were only black people. It'd be like if they passed the same thing where you guys are and they just went around and they just made their quota by harassing soccer hooligans. What happened with Eric Garner is he was selling loose cigarettes in the sense of like he had cigarettes and he was like if somebody wanted to walk by and be like, hey man, can I get a cigarette for $1? And the NYPD showed up and it was like the third time in a month that they'd came to like fuck with him because, you know, he's a bad guy. It'd be like if a soccer hooligan was sitting on the corner and he was like selling merchandise or whatever and nobody has any problem with it. Well, you ended up having 3 NYPD stop and frisk cops choke him, lay on top of him. I hope you guys know the story. It was worldwide, but he was saying, I can't breathe. And they kept laying on him and they kept laying on him until he was dead. So the reason I brought that up is because an antisocial bill where they make to where they can go out and they can profile people for soccer players, like when they did it to like profile criminals and they just arrested black people and people of color, like that was disgusting and it ruins people's fucking lives. Like if you get there's instances where the cops like would pull somebody over and shove their finger up their ass because they're like, oh, you're probably hiding drugs. Like literally just like pull somebody to the side of the road that's walking. I'm not even saying driving and do that. And so the reason I bring that up is because I appreciate you guys speaking up and talking about all the things that you're talking about, but it seems like there's, whether it's America or whatever, it seems like there's a lot of the same worldwide shit. And I don't know if it's white. I don't know if it's right wing. I don't know what it is, but a lot of these bills are being written with a lot of open loopholes and open interpretation for white people to go and kind of do whatever the fuck they want, whether it's cops or officials, and it scares the fuck out of me.
Well, this bill's so ridiculous, right? So it was basically you could be charged with like committing a crime basically inside a football ground. Which, if you did the exact same thing outside, like not on a match day, like just in your street, like say for example, somebody was annoyed at the ref, like Fuzz said, and they went, "Oh, you're a fucking arsehole" or something.
Yeah.
The police could like huckle you out and say, "Oh, you're being antisocial," right? You could end up getting arrested, or they could even put you in the cell for a night, like even for the weekend. You get out on the Monday. That could cost somebody their job. All because they were yelling at a referee for being a useless arsehole, which they usually are, to be fair, in Scotland.
Oh.
So it was a mental thing, and I think it has been like revoked, or it's kind of been lessened to an extent. But for a while, people were like losing their jobs just because they swore at a referee or they swore at an opposition player. It wasn't them being racist, it wasn't being them homophobic. They were just swearing at them. Do you know what I mean? And it was like, oh, you're antisocial. Come on, out this way.
Well, and they paid money when they went to jail, and that's what happens in America. They have a thing called a quota, and part of the reason why the NYPD stop and frisk thing happened was it made it a lot easier for them to arrest people, and a lot of people that are white went, well, if you didn't do anything, they're just going to take you down and fingerprint you, and they'll release you on your own reconnaissance. Oh, yeah, with a court date. So whether it's mental health we're talking about, or like you're saying, just missing work the next day, but being arrested for something that you didn't fucking do, and then like going through a booking process, and then in a week then being like, you're right, you didn't do anything. You don't get to like unfucking be in that jail. You don't get to not be around people that are yelling and doing certain shit. Like it's fucking stupid. So even in the name of the antisocial bill, that's crazy to me that they did that. I mean, it makes enough sense because that's the way the world is, but I think that's atrocious, man. That's crazy.
Oh yeah, it was insane. It was just like Abel said, it was just for the most silliest things, and it was just like he said, people do it outside. You do it right outside the stadium, nothing would happen. As soon as you walk through the turnstile, that was it.
Yeah.
Police were, I'd say, probably not, but it seemed like they were just drunk with the power of this bill.
Drunk with power. Drunk with power. Absolutely. And I'll only speak about America, but a lot of dudes that didn't make the football team with me, a lot of dudes that didn't get the job, that didn't do this, that didn't get the date from the girl in high school, those dudes immediately went out and became cops and started just fucking like when they'd pull somebody over that was nicer than them or cooler or more popular, they just are fucking assholes to everybody. And it's stupid. There's a thing, and they say, and it makes a lot of people uneasy, but I believe it. It's a term called ACAB. If you ever see anybody type it, it just means all cops are bastards. And a lot of people are like, that's really cold-blooded and really hard. But if you really think about it, if I told you that you were going to sign up for a job that was originally came into place to overwatch and recapture slaves, and all you're supposed to do now is do whatever the fuck you want until you get fired, then you get paid out the ass for it until you die, I would see like, that's probably a lot of bastards that are going to go sign up for that. And it is. It's a lot of dudes that abuse their power. And I'll say that because a lot of people are like, there's good cops out there. Well, here's the problem. If you have one good cop and he's not going to call out the rest of the bad cops, then guess what he is? He's a bad cop, whether he wants to believe it or not. I'm sorry. That's just kind of the way it is. Because if he thinks a citizen or a civilian is going to be able to call out his cop buddies that have guns and nightsticks and abuse of power before he does. But the real thing in America, and I don't know if it happens there, is if you're on the force and you call out the police department, your life is in danger. That's not a joke. Your life is in danger. People will start going around your house. If you're a former cop and you speak out about what cops do, you're in a lot of trouble. They're gonna find a way to fuck with you, like more than they would anybody else. So I don't know how we fix that. I don't know how we reform that. But I do know that I appreciate you guys talking to me about all these things that are on the same level. And like I said, there's a lot of hatred going on in America, in the UK, and none of it's really going to change unless we talk about it. So I'm going to use this last couple minutes, and Fuzz, I'll let you go first. Please tell the people what you got going on with your stream, what you're doing, what your plans are for the next foreseeable future.
I'm not streaming for a while, so I'm probably going to stream later on tonight.
Yeah.
Something planned with another streamer that I'm moderating for, but that's cancelled. So I'm going to try that, see how this mic works, try to get that set up. I'll be playing Return to Monkey Island, the game is puzzle game, so I'll be playing that. So it's quite a fun, humorous game, and a lot of puzzles to solve, and it's sort of goofy humour and that. So I'll be playing that over the next couple of weeks, and I'm planning starting back up with my daily streams and that, because let's say had a few health issues there, all good times, thankfully. So getting back to streaming, and that's it. It's the Return to Monkey Island. I'll be concentrating on that.
Right on. I'll have to check it out because MK's been talking about how awesome that game is, and you've been talking about it. I'll have to definitely check it out. GEW, the main man, AbelMagwitch, that's from the Glasgow Elite. Sir, what do you got going on over on that soccer pitch?
I'll be leaving the pitch and going to the ring on Sunday. I'm trying to do like at least one stream a week at the moment. I've just been kind of busy with work and things, but yeah, I'll be back Sunday. Obviously, we know that the Fiend Shark. He won the #1 contender match, so he's going to be fighting at Halloween Havoc against Floki for the title. And Fuzz, Smizzy, and Paldy are going to be fighting for the trios titles. So yeah, a lot of TWO action happening coming up in the next couple of weeks. So yeah, just try to get back in the swing of things a bit. I'm just kind of aiming for 1 stream a week at the moment, so I can try and build it back up.
Hell yeah! Well, make sure you guys go check out Fuzzrab. Their Twitch handles are above both their heads right now, and AbelMagwitch. And guys, I'm gonna invite you to come back again. We'll figure out when we are. We'll figure out a subject. I might even stay on subject next time. Who knows, bro? It could happen. You know what I mean?
I doubt it very much.
But either way, thank you guys very much for this.